So my name's Ella Weaver, and I am the Interim Vice President for Collective Impact at United Way of currently named Rutherford and Cannon County. We are now serving more counties than that, and so we're waiting on an official name change. But for now, we're United Way of Rutherford and Cannon County. And I'll tell you a little bit more later about what Vice President for Collective Impact means, because that's a vague statement. And I'm glad that Leanne told us that we were I'm glad you told us we were the first women. I was like, what? How many days have you been meeting and you've only had, not that you can't learn things from men, you absolutely can, but I'm glad we're here.
So I'm Janet Kincherlow-Martin. First of all, I want to say I'm a proud MTSU grad. Many years ago, before probably any of you were born, but anyway. So, because I didn't even know where this building was. So I am currently Vice President for Fund Development, Marketing, and Civic Engagement for the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. So our corporate office is in Nashville, but we serve 8 other counties. Rutherford is one of those counties. And so we're in the process of establishing satellite offices in the other counties, and I will be glad when we have the office here in Rutherford County, because I drive into Nashville every day, and it is horrific. But I love my job, so I do it. I spent 35 plus years in higher education, retired as a dean at a community college in Alabama, so I love being on a college campus. And so yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do, and a little bit more about leadership. We do our introductions.
Great. Patty James. I had a 30-year career in corporate America. I like to say I'm a refugee from corporate America. 30 and out. That was good. Most recent job in corporate was with Bridgestone Americas, who's an active partner here with MTSU. I've also run a nonprofit leadership program called Leadership Middle Tennessee, which I officed here in the business college for a couple of years. Love being on campus. It's a whole different vibe than being in corporate America, trust me, and you'll find out. And now I have my own consulting firm where I do career coaching, HR kind of turnkey projects, and so excited about the invitation to be here with you today. We'll be very informal, and we expect a lot of questions, because this is your session, not our session.
All right, back to me. Okay. Well, so I'll tell you a little bit more about United Way and the work that I do, and then I had kind of 3 topics I was going to cover initially with leadership. So I'm going to talk a little bit about continuous learning and development, about leading from your strengths, and engaging in your community. So is anyone aware of United Way? Anyone know what United Way is? 2, 3-ish? Somebody tell me what you think United Way is.
Isn't it insurance, medical insurance?
No, but thank you for answering.
Does it have something to do with healthcare?
Healthcare is what you said?
Is it something?
Not a healthcare company, but yes, it does have something to do with healthcare.
I know it's a nonprofit organization. I volunteered whenever there was a tornado in Bowling Green, and so this is where we have donated most of the things for United Way. So
Awesome.
Like food bank and everything.
Getting closer, yep. I think I saw a hand back here too. Nothing else to add. So yes, United Way is a nonprofit. United Way Worldwide is a global brand, and so as a global organization, the focus areas for United Way are health, financial stability, and education. One of the things that's great about United Way is we are also a local organization, and so locally we're determining our own priorities, the own structure of our organization, and the work that we do in the community. So locally, I mentioned we serve Rutherford and Cannon County. We've been doing that for several years, but we've just added Bedford and Lincoln, and are in the process of adding more Warren and Coffee. So we'll go from 2 counties to 7 counties in a short amount of time, and it's super fun. But locally, we kind of the similar priorities. We focus in financial stability, early childhood development, and mental health and substance abuse are our main impact areas. And with Collective Impact, our job is to really think about how we can all work together to solve complex issues in our communities. Complex issues do not have simple solutions, and so it takes all kinds of people coming to the table to make the needle move in those areas. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in engaging the community. Like Janet, I've also worked in higher education. So I worked at MTSU actually for about 4 years in the College of Liberal Arts. And I did, hey, thanks. Actually just saw Dean Lyons at a breakfast event I was at this morning, so we got to catch up a little bit. But and then prior to that, worked at Auburn University for about 9 years in first year programs. So when you came through orientation, that's one of the things that I did at Auburn. So I'll go ahead and slip now into my notes. So on the topic of continuous learning and development, which you guys are participating in right now, one of the ways I wanted to start is to think about how you frame learning. And at a previous Cable event, we had a speaker, Kia Jarman, who was an amazing speaker and facilitator on lots of different issues, but she was talking to us about diversity, equity, and inclusion and introduced me to the term of cultural humility. And I had always heard it framed it for myself as cultural competency. And when you think about the word competence, for me, you think you've learned something, you've mastered something, right? And when you switch it to cultural humility, and this is really humility in all learning, it's a continuous learning process. So you approach every situation, every person that you meet, as you still have things to learn from the people that are around you and the experiences that you're in. And so after hearing that from Kia, I've really kind of tried to embrace that in other areas and remember that as I'm thinking about new experiences. So just approaching it from a self-reflective process and an understanding that you have things to learn from everyone that you're around. So that means engaging the world with curiosity and seeing opportunities to learn new skills and apply them in new ways. When I worked with college students preparing for internships, how many of you guys have done internships or thinking about doing internships? One of the things that I like to do, both as a student, talking to students about this, but even as a professional as well, is when you're thinking about the next steps in your career, looking at job descriptions, things that you might be applying for 3-5 years down the road, and identifying the skills and the experiences that you already have, but also the things that you're missing and the things that you wouldn't be able to address in an interview or you wouldn't be able to demonstrate on your resume. And then finding ways to get those experiences and making the decisions about how you spend your time and the things you invest in based on building an expertise, so depth in a subject, or filling in gaps, so thinking about the breadth of your experience. And so the only way to do that is to approach with curiosity and to think about how you're going to learn and then utilize what you've learned in creative ways. So everything you're doing now can prepare you for what's down the road. 10 years, 20 years, the time you don't even want to consider is coming down the road. It's coming faster than you think. And so approaching it with that sense of excitement and learning, I think will really set you up for success as you move through that. As I also have seen, our United Way staff has grown a lot in the recent years as we've added new programming in areas. And as you think about entering into whether it's internships or full-time jobs in the future, thinking about having confidence in what you bring to the table and the skills and experiences and perspectives that you have, but also knowing that you have so much to learn, and that balance of confidence and humility of coming in and saying, I'm here to contribute and I'm here to learn. And that's at every stage of your career. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit to leading from your strengths. Has anyone ever done like a Strengths Finder, Myers-Briggs, all the things, most people-ish, some kind of assessment? There's lots of different opinions on the scientific validity of all of those things. I say embrace them for what they are, and they can help you learn about yourself, even if they're not proven science. I hear there's a lot of scientists in the room though, so you may really want proven science. I'll let you guys come up with the next great personality assessment that is based in proven science. But does anyone tell me an example of one of your strengths that you've learned from one of your assessments? Yeah. Empathy, yep, that's one of mine as well. Not to be confused with sympathy. They're very different things. And people, when I say I have empathy, they're like, really? But it's different than sympathy. Anything else? Yeah. Teaching, yes, excellent. So one of mine is restorative, and it's kind of a love-hate relationship people have with the restorative strength, but it basically means you come to a problem, an event, a project, a home, whatever, with the viewpoint of it may be great, it can always be better, and finding the ways that things could improve even slightly, and then kind of elevating it to what it could be. Sometimes my coworkers love that, sometimes they don't. Sometimes my husband loves that, sometimes he doesn't. But knowing that you have things to learn, and you have things that you need to be exposed to and skills you need to be better at, but also knowing that you all have strengths. And something like empathy, how do you lead from that place? How does that impact the work that you're doing, and kind of the thread run through everything that's happening, so you're leading from that place. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is engaging in your community. So someone tell me, I like to ask questions, what does networking mean for you? What comes to mind when you think about networking? Yeah. We'll come back down here. Go ahead.
Connecting with individuals, forming relationships, and communicating.
So connecting, relationships, communicating. Down here there's something?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, okay.
Building personal and professional relationships with people of shared interests.
Yep, excellent. Good definitions. Yeah.
They say you're networking at worth.
Okay, that's a good one, yeah. So, if I say there's a difference in my mind from networking and engaging in your community, do you have thoughts about, like, do those words feel different to you? What does that mean that's different? Yes.
I think to me, networking sounds more professional than engaging in your community.
Okay. More professional, yeah.
Engaging in the community seems to be more service oriented.
Mm-hmm. That's probably a good guess, especially because I'm coming from a nonprofit lens. I will say, so we talked a little bit about Rutherford Cable, referenced that, so we're all members and have been in leadership roles with Rutherford Cable. When I think about engaging with the community, I'm thinking about approaching the things that you do as, again, just like I talked about with jobs and stuff, is you have things to bring and contribute, and you have things to learn and take. And networking can be as cold and transactional or as warm and relational as you want it to be. And the mindset that you have when you go into that situation and that setting and the times that you have can really depend on what that is. So if it, and it may be a different approach depending on the different groups or the different events or whatever it is. But when I talk about engagement, as I told you, my title is Vice President of Collective Impact. Anyone, is collective impact a familiar term for anyone? Not surprising there. It's a framework, and it's a framework that's used to address complex social problems. That's the formal definition. What it really means is that everyone has a job, a role, a part of the solution. And I'm going to assume that because you guys are intelligent, super smart, you're here, you're obviously seeking something, some kind of connection, some growth. There are things that you care about, right? And there will be more things that you care about as you learn and grow and experience more of the world. And so my encouragement is to dig into those things, and even when they don't become your full-time career, your full-time focus, you have a job, a role in the solution of that problem, whatever it is, big, small, local, global, whatever the case is. When we think about collective impact with the United Way, we have a ton of different partners in all areas of the community. You guys have heard from some of our partners this week, you will later today. And everyone has the role. The large corporation, the small business, the philanthropist, the volunteer, the clients, the people of need, everyone has a job in the system. And the people who this system is working for are the least likely to initiate change, but that is everyone's job. And so finding a way to see what's happening in your community, what you care about, and what your role is in making improvements is what your job is as citizens of this community, of this world. So that's my final leadership encouragement. And now I will turn it over to Janet.
Thank you, Ellen. So, again, I'm Janet Kincherlow-Martin with Herbal League of Middle Tennessee. How many of you, probably nobody in here knows what Herbal League is? Anybody? Anybody want to take a guess? Come on, just take a guess.
Does it have something to do with food?
Sort of. Not really, but sort of. Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys help minorities get internship?
Yes. How do you know that?
Applied, that's why.
How do you know that?
I just applied for an internship.
Oh,
I actually got accepted already.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice. And she's not a plant. I don't even know your name. So yeah, so Urban League, and there are actually 92 affiliates. We are part of Urban League of National Urban League. And so Urban League of Middle Tennessee is one of 4 other Urban League affiliates here in the state of Tennessee. There is one in Knoxville, one in Chattanooga, and one in Memphis. And so as she said, what we do is we focus primarily on African Americans, minorities, and anybody that is underrepresented or disenfranchised. Our focus is workforce and economic development because we feel like if someone has a job, a career, that you have a livable wage, then all the other things that come into place like affordable housing and health care and transportation and child care, that you have the appropriate resources to be able to handle those things. We serve about 10,000-ish folks a year. And again, we are located right now in Nashville, but we are expanding permanently or visibly into the other 8 counties, and I will try to remember what they are. Usually I can't. So it's Davidson, Dixon, Montgomery, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, Wilson, Robinson. So those are the 9 counties that we serve. And so what I do is I am the primary fundraiser, so I bring in most of the money through events, through corporate partnerships, through just out talking about what Urban League does. A lot of our corporate partners are also folks that we have helped to fill jobs, because anyone will tell you now everybody's looking for good employees. Nobody seems to want to work. I don't understand that concept. I'm not sure how people are living these days. But it's harder for us to find qualified people for jobs. And so starting out, as you said, as an intern gives you a lot of good experience. So I want to kind of approach things a little bit from the perspective that Ella did, because I do come from an education background as well as nonprofit. When I was sitting where you guys are sitting many, many years ago, I had one, I guess, perspective about what I wanted to do. You know, life sometimes throws us lemons, and so we make lemonade. And so I never would have thought that I would have wound up where I am now. And this is like a second career for me, because I retired, like I said, from higher education administration 5 years ago, and wasn't ready to go and sit down and be nana, as I am to four young people, 24 hours a day. So I still felt like I needed to give back to the community, so this is my way of giving back. And so I want to talk a little bit about like connectivity and leadership and mentorship, because I think Ms. Leanne mentioned a little earlier, mentors are very important. And I don't think you ever outgrow a mentor. I have mentors because you need somebody that you can trust, that you can bounce things off of. And it doesn't necessarily always need to be somebody that's totally in agreement with everything that you do. Actually, it shouldn't be, because if you have a good mentor, they're going to be honest with you. And as you're growing and kind of developing and figuring out what you want to do in life, the mark that you want to make, a good mentor is very important. You know, we hear a lot about leadership, and just a couple of people. How would you define leadership? How do you define leadership or a leader? Anybody? Somebody's got to have a definition. Yes, sir.
I think leadership is basically being a person that's in front, that can go, like someone else can visualize as doing the right thing, doing the correct thing, and always being a person that can always be watched no matter what.
Yes, ma'am.
I think sometimes we forget the part of leadership where they work behind the scenes, and the ones that don't really show that they are the leader, they do all the dirty work behind the scenes. That's part of leadership.
Good point.
Someone that's holds you accountable, and someone that's on the front line with you, that direction is also involved in the objective.
Exactly. And something that all of you kind of touched on is that a leader also has to be a follower. When I was working in higher education, one of the things that I did is that I was kind of supervised our student ambassadors. And as we would do interviews with them, one of the questions we would always ask is if they felt like they were a leader or a follower. Well, of course, because they want to be impressive and they're student ambassadors, most of them would say, I'm a leader, and then we would ask them why. But, there would be problems probably 10% of them that would say, well, I'm a leader and a follower. And then, of course, we'd ask why. And in order to be a good leader, as you were saying, sometimes you have to do, you have to do the dirty work. Because I've supervised people, I've managed people, and I've never done anything that I wouldn't ask, that I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do. Because, a lot of people throw around the word team. Well, team means everybody has a part. Even the quarterback sometimes gets dirty, right? So that's one of the biggest things I think you need to remember about being a good leader is that you also have to be a good follower. Sometimes you don't have all the answers. I worked with a young lady, she was my assistant for a long time, and she would come to me, and I would trust her to come to me, because she would come to me and I'd ask her to do something, and she's like, are you sure that's the way you want to do it? And when she first started asking me, I'm like, wait a minute. But then I trusted her enough that when she did question me, she would question me, and then she'd offer an alternative. It wasn't always an alternative that was workable, but she would offer an alternative. So a good leader also has to be a good listener. You have to listen to what other people say. You also have to inspire people, because people want to be, they want to follow someone that they feel like is leading them in the right direction. They want to be encouraged. And sometimes you go in and the last thing you want to do is hear somebody's problems, but that sort of kind of comes along with the territory. But I always tell my staffs that if you come to me with a problem or an issue, come to me with a solution. It might not be the right solution, but at least it gives us a starting point. And so, be an encourager. Sometimes it's just, you have to just listen to people and not always necessarily offer a solution. Sometimes you just have to be a therapist. Like I said, just kind of listen to people. Something else I want to say about leadership and just learning, because I do come from an education background, is that I don't think you're ever too old to learn either. Be a lifelong learner. I try to learn something new every day. I learned something from my 2-year-old granddaughter, believe it or not. I know all about Dr. Steffens, but not know if it's usable in my life, but I know all about Dr. Steffens. But seriously, be a lifelong learner. If it's nothing more than, cicadas are everywhere. Learn something about the cicadas. I wish they'd go away. But my 5-year-old grandson, the other day, I felt like we were being attacked by one cicada. But anyway, he said, again, just, listening to a 5-year-old and his very innocent mind, he said, no, the cicadas are friendly. And I said, I guess they are. But I learned that from him. I'm like, I don't have to run from this bug because it can't hurt me.
I'm not convinced yet.
Well, so they say, I don't know. But my point is that, be willing, keep your mind open, be willing to learn. A good leader learns, and then you can pass that knowledge on to somebody else. Leadership is about people. Someone said earlier about connection, maybe it was you, Elle, that said something about connections and being relational. It's about people. It's not about processes. It's about people. And you have to like people. There are some folks that are in positions of leadership that they shouldn't be because they don't like people. But you have to like people. You don't have to love everybody, but you have to like people. You have to like being around people. That's one of the things I really like about working in the nonprofit area, because you get to engage with so many different kinds of folks on so many different kinds of levels. And again, I try to learn something from everybody I talk to, because I love people. I love Ella. Ella's my BFF. We have this little running joke. Ella and I used to work together at United Way. So. But I love being around people, and I like engaging with people, and I like trying to find out something that's different about someone than me. But then I also find it also through relationships and learn more about people that we have so much more in common than what we think. There's not a person, seriously, that I think I meet that after a conversation, we either know some of the same people, we have been to the same place, there's something. So if you talk to people long enough, you can find out something about them. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with leadership? Again, it's about people. People want to know that you are interested in them, and that you're invested in them, because they will then in turn invest in you. I left my college like 5 years ago, my staff still calls me just to check on me. Yeah, just to check on me. And I feel like, well, hopefully I've made some impact in their lives that they will then pass on to someone else. So again, I think if I can leave anything with you, just remember that to be a good leader, you have to be a couple of things. Be a good follower, be a good listener, and like people.
Great, thank you. Well, we're done now. So who's the most important person you're gonna lead?
Yourself.
Yourself. So one of the key parts of leadership, before you can lead, before you can have followers, you have to know yourself. You have, and I know you've been touching on authenticity. And so you really have to be true to yourself and know yourself very well. What's your why? If you haven't read Simon Sinek's What's Your Why, I think it's just called Why. Pick it up, because I know you need something to read besides a textbook. But you have to know your why. You have to know your moral and ethical core. And you have to know kind of your culture and what kind of culture do you want to work in. Is that an entrepreneurial culture? Is it nonprofit? Is it corporate? Is it education? There's a whole big world out there in different areas where you can plug in and lead, but you got to know yourself first. You can lead from anywhere. You do not have to have a title to be a leader in any kind of organization. You know, there is position power, but people who are dependent, leaders who are dependent on position power will eventually get tripped up some way, somehow. But you can lead from anywhere if you exhibit the skills that people want to follow. I love it as I look around and see all your different majors. This is a cross-functional group. You know, you're all going to bring to your careers, to your leadership, kind of your core competencies that you've learned in school. You know, I've got 3 degrees. There's maybe one class I've actually used those technical skills in my career. But you know, it's the logical thought you've learned, the study practices you've learned, the camaraderie you're going to get from a group like this that are going to help you when you transition to that next step. So you've got to take advantage of the opportunities to learn from people who are in different majors, different areas. So I had a career in human resources, but I very seldom worked in human resources because I worked cross-functionally. So I worked with teams that had accountants and teams that had lawyers and teams that had communications and PR people and manufacturing and sales. So the more you can put yourself out there to take advantage of opportunities to work cross-functionally or discover what other people are doing, then they learn what your skills are. Because it's not always what you know, it's who knows what you know. Then, you know, we've touched on mentors. You know, we have a dear friend who loves to quote the proverb, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So, you know, you need mentors. My first mentor, it was so long ago they didn't even call them mentors then. But he's a professor, and he happened to be a good friend of my dad's. And I've had mentors throughout my career, but a mentor is really someone inside your field, someone inside your company, someone outside. You want to get a variety of opinions on mentors. I mentor from Tennessee Achieves all the way on up to corporate executives. I learned something from all of those levels because everyone has a different perspective. Some of you might want to engage a coach at some time along the way. You know, a lot of companies now, when they want to provide professional development to people, they're providing coaches. Coaches is, who played a sport? Coaches are different than a mentor. Coach is gonna drill you. You're gonna be shooting that free throw forever. Practice, practice, practice. You also need sponsors and you need allies. So, it takes a village to have a career. So, sponsors are people who know what you can do and who will help sponsor you to move up in an organization or get that contract as an entrepreneur. And an ally is someone, a partner who can work together with you to help you both, a rising tide lifts all boats. So where you have allies in the organization. A key part of managing yourself and leading yourself is also what's your personal brand. And I know you guys are going to talk about elevator speeches. You're probably already working on them because I see you got to deliver them. But, in this day and age, your personal brand is you. Everything you say, everything you do, everything you don't say, your body language. It's also your online presence. And, love social media and LinkedIn and eventually some other tools are critical going forward on your career path. Because a recruiter, the first thing they're going to do is look you up. And they're going to look you up on LinkedIn, see that beautiful professional headshot and profile. And then they're going to go to Instagram, and they're going to see you having that beer bong at the party. And then they're going to go to Facebook, and they're going to see something else. So, it's just consistency across the platforms to ensure your personal brand is what you want it to be. Your personal brand matches your elevator speech. And just as Ella taught, reaching out into your community. So I've done nonprofit work as a volunteer as well as an employee. It's a great way to get involved and to help with things in your community, but it's also a great way to network because you never know who you're going to meet in one of those venues who's going to help you if you're looking for that next opportunity, that next contract, that next position. You need to cast a wide net to your network. It's your friends from school, your friends from church, people you used to work with, your parents' friends. You just don't know where that next lead is going to come from. So to be a leader, you got to have the network and cast a wide net out there because that's going to bring returns. And when you partake in the network, you also have to give back in the network. When I ask a favor of someone, I always offer, and is there something I can do for you in return? Can I buy you a cup of coffee, an adult beverage, a gift card somewhere? Just so it's a reciprocal type relationship because you don't want to be, your leadership brand should not be that you're a taker. You want to be a giver and a taker. Questions that people have, other things we can hit on for you.
I got a few questions. Basically, Ms. Brown, I have a question for you. So you say that you work with consulting and professional development. One question, are you part of the Association of Talent Development in Nashville?
I am not. I have been a member of the ICF, International Coaching Federation, and both Nashville and Rutherford Cable, which are both professional women's development and networking programs. But where you can get certifications and plug in, networking is also plugging in with people of your kind. I used to do Society of Human Resource Management, the student chapter, but, I didn't get this gray hair for nothing. I'm a little bit out of that type networking now.
Also with your consulting business, you do interns. internships and for students?
Yeah, my consulting business is very small now, because I'm in my third encore career. My most important part of my career is travel. Second part is running business, so I do not have interns, but if you reach out, is Deborah Roberts still doing, do you know Deborah Roberts here on campus? Go see Deborah. She can find some great opportunities, because you know, the more real world experience you can get, the better.
I'll also just say that, as I said, when I was in college of liberal arts, internships that was one of my roles. And so I'm always willing to have conversations about just brainstorming, tossing ideas around, connecting you to anyone I may know. So happy to have those conversations. Deborah is specifically in the Small Business Development Center. And one of their roles is helping connect students to internships in all varieties of
venues,
vocations and careers and stuff like that.
I actually met with Galen at Small Business
Perfect, yeah.
Development Center and
Correct.
interviewed with him.
Awesome.
I haven't got a response back, but I have interviewed with him. Question for all three of you guys. All of you guys have a background in higher education of some sort, whether that be through liberal arts, through administration. How do you think your background in higher education has propelled you into who you are now, into the careers with nonprofit that you guys are in?
Well, I don't know if you guys read the bios, but my trajectory was very strange. So my bachelor's is in agricultural economics and business. So my plan was to do marketing or PR for an agricultural firm. I grew up on a farm. I was in 4-H and FFA. Anybody else? Yeah. So that's what I wanted to do. It was, oddly enough, at an internship fair my junior year when I was like, nope, not doing this. And I've been super involved on campus in lots of different ways. And so that's when I decided to go into higher ed. So the involvement that I had on campus changed my life. I mean, the connections that I made there and the way that it taught me to engage with the community around me. Because I loved what Patty was saying about giving and taking. Like, as a member of this university community, it all applies here too. You're not just here to take from MTSU. That is absolutely one of the reasons that you're here, but there's a give process as well, whether that's mentoring other students, whether that's, leaving legacies in your academic programs, in your organizations that you're in. Just being a responsible part of this university community is a great first step to learning how to do that in the future. So I went to University of Tennessee, and that I learned there, like, how to engage with my community, and that has impacted everything else I did after that. And I'm still grateful for my degree in the College of Agriculture. It was a great way to make the school small and to engage with all different types of people. It's just, as I found out when I was talking to employers, I do not want to work for you and do that work.
So my higher education experience was actually what I call the hole in the donut, because I actually started out in nonprofit. And through, life, again, throws us lemon so we make lemonade. Through some life changes, I made my way to Alabama, because I'm from Tennessee originally, and was looking for a job. And so I sort of kind of fell into higher education, but I loved it. So I worked initially at Alabama A&M University, and then I worked for community college in the community college system in Alabama for most of that time. And so I think what I learned from that experience is a couple things. One, that people have, the students at an HBCU, which is Alabama A&M was, and a community college student are in a lot of ways similar. Because a lot of them have had challenges to get to where they were. And I think just appreciating that they took those challenges and didn't let that limit them. And so I think we see a lot of the same thing in nonprofit. And so I feel like the worlds are very similar, because it allowed me, and it still allows me, to be able, again, to engage with all kinds of people, because I love people. I love hearing their stories. And I love hoping that I can somehow impact them in some way. If it's nothing more than a smile or walking them across campus, or because I taught just because we didn't have enough orientation teachers. And so when you're in higher administration, you get voluntold to do things. And so I got an opportunity to teach orientation for a couple of years. And I learned so much from those students because a lot of them, probably half of my classes each semester were folks who were turning back to school. So they had, some of them had started school and, went the wrong direction and dropped out and then came back. And just being able again to appreciate the sacrifices that them and their parents and their families were making for them to have that higher education experience. And that's a lot of what we see in nonprofit. And so I think again that the worlds are so closely connected. So to me it was just a natural kind of progression but regression, because like I said, I started in nonprofit, went to higher education, and back in nonprofit.
Well, and I think part of it is just the whole concept of continuous learning. You have to continuously integrate, sharpening your saw, keeping your learning so that you can continue to get better and better in whatever career you pursue. So the ability to encourage people in a corporate environment to go back to school, who maybe want to make a career pivot and do something different, encouraging them to go back and giving them the flexibility to balance working and going to school and maybe raising a family or caring for a parent. So I think for me, it was just really about continuing to sharpen the saw in whatever work environment you're in.
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing. I think learning how to learn is one of the things that is so important about what you guys are doing right now. 20 years from now, your life is going to look completely different. There will be new technology. You'll be in jobs that don't even exist right now. And so you knowing how to learn and how to use your resources, how to use the people around you, that's what is most important right now.
And I want to say one more thing too while we're talking, and I think we all kind of hit on that, is again, what Ella was saying, what your life looks like now, what your career plan might be right now is probably not where you're going to end up. I started out in pre-med. When I came here, I was in pre-med. And it took one experience viewing an autopsy and getting up off the floor after I passed out to say, that's probably, if I can't deal with the dead people, I certainly probably can't deal with the living people. So, so I came back from the autopsy and I came back on campus and I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do? Because my entire life that I can remember, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And so I'm not a pediatrician, but I'm very, very happy in the path that I was directed in. And again, it wasn't a path that I started in, but this is where I was meant to be. And so just, kind of not being afraid to pivot. We've heard that term a lot in the last 4 years, but it's okay because to me, you get to experience what life is, what's out there. Again, you may start out in agriculture, but not tough in agriculture. So just being receptive to what's out there, and sometimes coming up with your own job. It may be something that you create that no one's ever thought about.
What else?
Something that we've talked a little bit about this week is just the ever-changing expectations of, new people joining the workforce. As a leader, what outlets do you use, or how do you continue to stay flexible in learning what those different expectations are on a continual basis?
When you say expectations, you mean from the folks that are coming into your organization?
Yeah, so, people that are just graduating college, the different generations, a lot of what I'm hearing, I'm a little bit older than a lot of people in this class, but a lot of what I'm hearing is that, they're looking for more flexible hours and not necessarily having to work a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, so, okay. I have an interesting perspective because we just went through some changes at United Way, actually. Our CEO, who had been there for 10 years, left in January, and someone internal took that role, and that's why I'm now interim in my role. And we shifted from very structured, like, in your seat at 8 o'clock-ish. One of my struggles. No, like, you're in the office, you're all of those things. And we're now doing, each staff member chose 2 days to work from home. So like I'm working from home on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we have some other kind of a little bit more open, like flexibility and things like that. It's not, we're not like a fully remote, do what you want when you want. And I don't know that we should be. I think even, would I love to work from home all day long and make my own schedule? Yes, I would. Would that be the best option for me to get things done? It would not. And so I think, and I'm just going to point back to something I said in the beginning about coming in with confidence and also knowing you have a lot to learn. And so people that have been, that goes for people in leadership roles as well. So when someone's had experience in a company or an industry or whatever for 10, 15, 20 years, they know a lot as well and have lots of things to learn. But there has to be some structure in the way that we work. And there has to be accountability to shareholders, to donors, whatever the case is of wherever you're working. And we got to get work done. We've got to move forward. If your work is not important to you and the outcomes of your work are not important to you, then what are you doing there, right? So there's got to be a way to do your work well. And that requires flexibility on everyone's part, whether it's from senior leadership to mid-level managers to entry-level employees. And empathy is a great skill in that, and understanding what others need to do their work well, and it's going to be different for everyone. So there's perfect worlds and then there's real worlds, and hopefully you can all find yourselves in places where people understand your needs or are interested in your needs, value your needs, and are willing to be flexible in that. And hopefully you all will as well, and understand the needs and values of whoever you're working with and for, and are able to flexibly respond to that.
I think too, going into an organization, just having honest conversations about what expectations are. Because in the organization where I work, when I started working 2 years ago, there were 10 of us. I think I made the 10th person. There are now 25 of us 2 years later. And it's because we've got some grants, we've got some programming dollars, and so we've hired people associated with those programs. But there are some jobs that will allow more flexibility than others within the same organization. Mm-hmm. The folks that are our workforce development folks, they have to be in the office more because there are people that are dropping in looking for a job. If they can't find you, they can't talk to you. My job is a little more flexible because of what I do. And so I think just having those conversations up front, okay, what are the expectations for this job? And being clear about what you expect and what the employer expects. And I do like what Ella said about accountability. Everybody has to be accountable. I am not a clock watcher. I'm not, if someone works with me, I'm bringing that person on board because I trust that they're going to be able to do their job. Now, do I expect them to sit at their desk all day long? There are some jobs, if you're sitting at your desk all day long and you're supposed to raise money, you're not raising money. You're not out and about. But then again, there are some jobs, if you're the office manager, you pretty much have to be there all the time. Our office manager now is a lovely lady, but she had to be out of town, so she wanted to know if she could work remotely. How does that work? How does that work? So again, like I said, I think it's just having those honest conversations as you're looking around and joining an organization where you can do the kind of job you want to do under the circumstances that they expect you to do that job. Because there are some organizations that you can work from home. You can be in California for a job for a company that's here, but there are other organizations again or jobs that you have to physically be there more. And so again, just having conversations.
Yeah, and from a company perspective, you want to make sure you're doing employee engagement surveys. You got to hear, that's kind of the voice of the customer. Mm-hmm. From the organizational point of view. And companies have pivoted faster than they ever thought they were going to in the post-COVID world. When I was working, if you wanted to work from home, oh my God, you better bring your firstborn, and you were going to have a video camera watching you. I mean, it was truly an act of God to get to work from home. But now, they hotel. People are in the office 2 days a week and they're at home 3 days a week. So you really got to keep the pulse through employee engagement, and then as you're recruiting people, you gotta listen to the trends. Because there's some meshing. Yeah, you know, we'd all like to work from home and have bring your dog to work day and all that stuff, but the work's gotta get done. So how do you mesh that? And as someone going into a new job, how do you make sure you find a company that's got the culture with the kind of flexibility you're looking for, or a traditional culture? Because they're still out there.
More questions?
Can you share a little bit about what Cable is, how it works? Because I think it is kind of a unique organization.
Who wants to start?
So 45 years ago, an organization started in Nashville called Nashville Cable. And it started with the YWCA and a group of women lawyers, because at that time, 45 years ago, women were not allowed to go to the Nashville City Club. It was a men's only club, and it wasn't that kind of men's only club. It was, you know, professional lunch, that type of thing. And those women in the YWCA got together and said, you know, as women, we need that same kind of opportunity to network, to learn about others' businesses, other careers, and to support each other as women moving forward. Fast forward 15 years ago, Nashville decided to seed a chapter here in Rutherford County because the growth in this county has been so phenomenal. And the organization was founded part with the chamber and a lot of really strong volunteers. It's a volunteer-run organization, and it is focused on women's professional advancement and moving women forward and networking. And they offer different programming to meet you where you are, whether you are new in your career and you need some mentoring, or you're experiencing your career and you're just looking to refine your leadership skills. And Dr. Foote back there has taught in some of our prior classes. We've done partnering with MTSU in the past. So it really is a great place for 160-ish women in the Rutherford County area.
190-ish.
Are we at 90?
And a few, we actually have,
we have some male members also. But it's a great opportunity to get together. Every month we have the opportunity to hear a speaker that can help us grow professionally and personally, to have networking gatherings, mentoring, leadership development, fun. So it really has grown and developed over the years into a really vital organization in the community.
For those of us who might be interested in possibly attending some of those events, are we able to do that as college students, or is it specifically for?
Absolutely open.
All levels. And you know, if you connect with any of us on LinkedIn, I don't know if our emails are on the, but you know, happy to host you as a guest. If you want to come, we meet the second Tuesday of every month at the Fountains.
Yeah, totally happy for you to share my email.
Yeah,
everybody
too,
good.
yes.
And you can come as one of our guests. And again, it's anyone invested in the professional advancement of women. We used to have a active member, John, whatever. John Carney's somebody else that I met with yesterday. Anyway, he had 3 daughters, and he said that his reason, his why for Cable was knowing that professional advancement of women was good for everyone now and certainly good for his daughters in the future. So that was his reason he came. So happy to have any of you guys as guests. And the June meeting is our annual meeting and awards. It's not the most exciting one for guests, but you're certainly welcome. But I'd go with July or something later.
Go with July, August, or September.
And one thing I want to say about Cable as well is that we empower women. So much so that we've changed, so our monthly meetings we call them breakfast meetings or whatever. So now we call them empowerment gatherings. because we want to make sure that we stress that part. And we also recognize outstanding women in the community, as a matter of fact. And the only reason I say this is because I can breathe a sigh of relief that I'm now handing this over to someone else. So I have, for the past many months, been the Rutherford Cable Athena Committee Chair. And so for those of you who don't know what Athena is an international organization, and Athena recognizes outstanding women in the communities where those programs exist. And so for Rutherford County and for Davidson County, the cable organization in those counties kind of coordinates Athena. And so last Friday, we were right here on campus in the Student Center and had our Athena Awards celebration and recognized two wonderful women. And Dr. Christina Cobb, who some of you may know, actually works here at MTSU, was our Young Professional Award recipient. And so that's also part of one of our programs with Rutherford Cable.
And the Athena winner, or recipient, is Deb Thompson, who is on the United Way board and a cable member and all kinds of other.
Is there a similar organization for men in the area that you would recommend that's really good for the empowerment and supporting and networking?
Anything I could say would not be politically correct.
There is
All
Murfreesboro.
available to men.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that, but
There is Murfreesboro Young Professionals, and so that's a great option to look at as you're graduating and going into the field. And there's any city's going to have a insert city name Young Professionals. There are, Rotary and what's the K one? Kiwanis are active in this community and are great ways to get involved from a civic standpoint, engaging with lots of different types of people, those kinds of things. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's specifically men focused.
Murfreesboro and in Nashville, there's 100 Black Men.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know there's a chapter here because I worked with them when I was at United Way, and there's also one in Nashville, and they do similar kinds of programs, but they do a lot of mentoring as well.
From a giving back standpoint, there are both 100 women who care and 100 men who care in Rutherford County. They're both fairly new. The 100 Women Who Care started
2020.
Yeah, 2020.
Starting COVID.
And then the men's group started a year ago. But basically it's a quarterly meeting where you come together and decide on a nonprofit to donate to, and then you each give $100, right? My brain is fried today. And then collectively, it's like a giving circle set up. And so those are both available to anyone.
That's helpful. Thank you. Just some ideas out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other questions? And we would love to have any of you engaged with United Way. We have a Young Leaders Society as well, a giving society.
So does Urban League.
Mhm.
Peace Society.
Well, I'm glad to know you guys are doing more here too, because we're doing some more workforce development stuff too, so maybe a great way to partner. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we share a board member, Pastor McCarroll, is on our board.
Yes. And you guys, Ronald Roberts is coming this afternoon, right? So he's a board member at United Way. Actually, Deborah Roberts, who we were talking about earlier, they live together and are married. They're roommates. And if you have a chance to ask Ronald some questions, you should ask him what song describes his life. He has done some work with our staff and has said that's his favorite question to ask in interviews, so you should turn it back on him and see if he's prepared for that.
And he also used to be on staff here at MTSU.
Wealth of wisdom in that brain.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming and
Really
sharing your
enjoyed
time.
Don't hesitate